Welcome to Tiger Stripes. This is a show that gives you a chance to see bits that are a bit too long to air on regular Twain TV.
February is Black History Month. Here at Twain, many of our staff and teachers have their own perspective to give. Here's more.
My father came to the United States on a visa to go to school. He went to Howard University, which is directly right in our backyard, and my mom went to Hampton University. Both of my parents and my uncles and aunts were very involved in the civil rights movement in some way or another. My mother was involved in helping freedom riders through an organization called SNCC and was good friends with Stokely Carmichael. So growing up as a middle school student, my parents, like for instance, for Black History Month, I would have to watch any type of documentary that had to deal with the civil rights era. I had to recite the I Have a Dream speech until I committed it to memory. My mom would make me research people like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and Charles Drew, and she wanted me to have an awareness of who I was as an African American woman and living in this country. She wanted to make sure that I knew the people that came before me and the people that paved the way. So it had a tremendous effect on me because I had parents who had lived and gone to college during that era.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of things I would have missed out on. And I think it's important to say that I have benefited from the race that I am and even the gender that I am. Being a white male in this society, things have been pretty smooth for me, I would say, as long as I studied and, paid attention to what I was doing with my life. So I can imagine if I was of a different race and in a different time period, a lot of things would not be available to me. Certain jobs that I would like to pursue, certain colleges and universities that I would like to have gone to after I graduated high school, and also just having the benefit of feeling like a free citizen in the society where everyone is supposed to be free. I think some of those rights and freedoms are still denied people, and especially they were denied in the past.
I was born in Prince George's County at Cheverly Hospital.
How is the culture different there from here? And could you give us some examples about tradition, food, clothing, ethnic backgrounds?
The culture there is different. It's a predominantly African American community. This area is not. It's very diverse.
So did the people who you researched about have a large impact on your life and inspiration to pursue what you're doing now?
Absolutely. Well, for instance, I had in middle school, I went to a school that was predominantly white for the majority of from middle school up to high school, and I couldn't believe that we had history books that didn't have very many African American people in the books. It would go from slavery straight to Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and I knew that that wasn't so based on my own family history, based on my family migrating from South Carolina to New York and my grandparents uprooting their whole family and moving during the Great Migration. I knew that there were other stories out there, and I was very vocal about it in middle school. So my social studies teacher gave me a list of African Americans to research, and once a month he would allow me to teach the class about people that looked like me and had experienced things like me, and I developed this desire to be around students by doing that, and I developed this desire to become a teacher. So I eventually became a school teacher and then a school counselor.
Wow. How do you think your life would be different if you had to experience the prejudice and discrimination that prior generations had to?
I have a great deal of respect for the pioneers and the civil rights leaders and the inventors who paved the way. I personally don't know how they dealt with that. I don't know. They had to be people of great faith. They had to be people of great intellect, and they had to be people of great integrity to deal with the level of prejudice that existed in this country prior to the civil rights era and prior to the early 70s. I personally don't think that I would have been able to deal with that. So I think my life would have been different in the sense that, did you ask me how my life would be different?
Yeah.
Oof. Okay, so you don't have to edit this part. How would my life be different if I lived during that era?
If you had to experience the things your predecessors experienced.
Yeah, lift.
How would my life be different if, okay,
Like, what opportunities would you miss?
oh my
How would-
goodness. I mean, we live in a society now that is so diverse and so accepting of women,
Yeah.
for instance, just the women's suffrage movement that happened in 1913, the civil rights era that happened in the late 60s, the right for African American people to vote, Brown versus Board of Education, where schools are now integrated. I can't imagine Twain Middle School being a school where you and I couldn't be in this school. I can't imagine a school where the boys and the girls were segregated. I can't imagine a school where you didn't have all these different languages. I mean, if you think about what would Twain be like if the civil rights movement didn't exist? It would be a very boring place. It's like almost like saying you're going to eat hot dogs and hamburgers every day. That's boring. What makes this world so great is the diversity and the experiences that we all bring to the table. That we're all like a big pot of soup. And what would soup be like if it just had the broth?
Thank you for joining me. It was wonderful interviewing you. Thank you, Ms. Cody.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
My family had a lot of teachers. My grandmother had 10 kids, and I think 4 or 5 of them were teachers. So that kind of spending time with them helped me want to become a teacher. Also, my cousins who asked me to help them in basketball when I was in college, that kind of helped give me the teacher bug, along with my preference and my desire to be physically active and my love for sports.
Being given the general respect and, how do I want to say this? Given the, I'm messing up. I can't
That's
think
okay.
of
I
this.
can edit it.
Okay.
You can.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about it for a second.
Yeah. Take your time.
I think I'm viewed in society as a white male as being someone who is competent and capable already just by looking at me. And I think it goes for a lot of people that look like me. And I think that's a benefit that I have that even today some people who look opposite of me probably don't have. I think they would have to prove themselves more in terms of education, in terms of their qualifications in a job. And so they still have to fight harder to prove that they're just as valuable a human being as myself.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you too. Cool.
You learn a lot from other people, from other cultures that you wouldn't necessarily get from everyone being from the same background.
Do you have schoolophobia? Well, you've never heard of it? Well, this message may be for you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Carla Johnson, PhD, and today I am going to be telling you about a very serious and dire illness called schoolophobia. Schoolophobia affects 4 out of 5 school-age children in our nation. I'll be walking you through the 5 major stages of schoolophobia. And remember, if any of these symptoms are exhibited by a child in your life, call the National Council for the Treatment of Schoolophobia today.
What? It's August 31st? No, okay, my phone must be wrong. There's no way it's that close to the beginning of school.
Ugh, I can't believe it's the first day of school.
And my locker's not even opening.
Oh my god. Look, we don't even have any classes together.
Oh my gosh. This 8th grade will be terrible.
I know, right?
Science class is so hard.
Why? Don't want to do my homework.
Today we're going to be learning about erosion and
Here,
weather.
teach.
Here's the deal. Charlene, how many times do I have to go through this?
We're tired of doing our homework. Isn't that right, Maya?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya, can't you see Charlene? Okay, if you sit... God,
Teach.
I'm starting to think there might not be enough space in this classroom for the three of us.
Yeah.
students, sit down.
Straight, 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 straight. No homework. Straight, straight.
Stage 5 is the most dangerous stage. Students lose a piece of themselves. They become violent and volatile. Extreme caution must be used around patients being afflicted with stage 5 schoolophobia.
And in some extreme cases, there is even a stage 6, juvenile rehabilitation. These students are so far gone, they require serious help and need to be transferred to a local juvenile rehabilitation center. This can have varying effects on students.
Some make light of their situation.
Am I glad that I'm in here? Well, sure. I don't have to do any homework in here.
Others sink deeper into their depression. And still others grow angry at the world.
I'll seek my revenge.
Ensure that this doesn't happen to your child. Call the National Council for the Treatment of Schoolophobia today. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if a child in your life exhibits any of these symptoms, call the National Council for the Treatment of Schoolophobia today. 411-927-5679.
Last November, John Halligan gave an emotional presentation about the dangers of cyberbullying. He describes how it impacted his son with the tragic consequences. Twain TV had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Halligan to get an inside look at his story.
What is your goal through these presentations?
My goal for these presentations is to try to reach at least 3 types of people. The ones who are being bullied, I'm hoping they got a message today that they are loved and it's okay to ask for help and not to be embarrassed that you are being bullied. I hope I got to the bystanders, the ones who hang out on the sidelines and let stuff happen and they don't say anything. I hope they got the message that that's not okay, you need to stand up to these people. And the third is the ones who are doing the bullying. I hope they found an opportunity today to kind of wipe the slate clean and go up and apologize to people.
Do you think cyberbullying has changed?
I think cyberbullying has gotten worse. I'm not sure that it changed because I think the fundamentals are still the same. So what happened to my son 12, 13 years ago with instant messaging, which I kind of wondered if the audience knew what I was talking about. But AIM is something they did back then. It was right before MySpace and well before Facebook. But the fundamentals were basically right there, where you can hide behind a screen and text things that you'd never say to somebody's face. Mm-hmm. So the things that change over the years, obviously, the technology's gotten bigger, right? You've got more opportunities now. You got smartphones, you have apps, you have websites, you have all sorts of different ways now to do basically the same thing. Hide behind a screen and say or do things that you'd never do to somebody's face.
What keeps you giving these presentations?
What drives me to keep giving these presentations is the fact that I know people are taking this to heart still. The day the audience stops listening to me, this will be the day I stop. But it seems like, even though Ryan's story is, over 10 years at this point, it still seems to resonate with young people. Again, the fundamentals of what happened to him are still happening today. So I think the story is relatable, and I think it's still helping people make better choices and changes in their lives. And so, as long as that continues to happen, I'll keep telling the story.
What emotions do you feel when giving a presentation?
Well, the emotions I feel at times. Well, I have a hard time in the very beginning with the video. I know it's important to show it because I want the audience to meet him, but I will tell you, most of the time I don't even look at it because I have a hard time with it. just because it brings back a lot of memories. But it's important to show it. The other thing I feel, it depends on the questions too. Like today we got some very deep questions about, what are the last words you had with him. I thought that one question the person asked me about, what did you do when you got home that day when he died? And that hit me hard. I think the audience kind of felt that today because I haven't thought of that for a long time. But that group hug that we had was pretty intense.
What part of your presentation is the hardest to tell?
What part of the presentation is the hardest to tell? I don't think there's any one particular part other than, like that. Let me back up. The part where I have to tell the story about ripping into the kid, I have to get myself back into the anger mode, and I have a hard time with that sometimes because, as I said, in the Q&A, that we've long forgiven both him and Ashley. I just don't harbor those harsh feelings anymore. But in telling the story, I know I got to reenact. I got to come back to that moment of anger, and that is probably the hardest part.
Well, thank you for letting us interview you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Governor Terry McAuliffe
visited Twain to deliver a budget announcement about education. He also got a taste of life here around Twain. Here's our report.
Last December, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe visited Twain to present his budget address, which detailed his plan for the statewide budget for 2016. Twain TV covered the event. Before he spoke, the governor was able to get a glimpse of Twain life.
And when you grow the carrots, we use them here in the kitchen. What do we do with the carrots?
We actually have gotten permission for some students to go to the farmer's market to sell.
Sell them. Good for you. How y'all doing? Okay. How you doing today? Good to see you. How you doing today?
How's it going, Mr. Governor? Chris Isley. I'm the
And do you name all the chickens?
Yeah.
The rooster, the black rooster there is Mr. Fuzzums.
Fuzzums right there, yeah, I can tell.
Snickers is the other rooster. He's with the white and green.
There's D right there's close.
That's disappointment. She was
Why?
Because she was supposed to have curled feathers, but she didn't.
Oh, go through life with disappointment. $1,000. Right?
And all because teachers will teach you how to do that.
Now, here are some highlights from his speech.
Together, these proposals are a demonstration that we as a state are strong partners to make sure our students are receiving the knowledge and the skills that they need to contribute to the new Virginia economy. This budget also reinforces our commitment to closing the achievement gap. So our budget will include $7 million in new funding to help build our capacity for pre-K in the Commonwealth through grants to support public-private partnerships and workforce development for early childhood professionals. In addition, last week we announced that our budget, we will double the funding to expand school breakfast programs through the Breakfast After the Bell initiative. Recently, I announced our Classrooms, Not Courtrooms initiative, a statewide push to reduce unnecessary school suspensions, expulsions, and student referrals to law enforcement. The budget proposal will include funding to change the math tests for 4th and 5th grades and the reading tests from grades 3 through 8 to a new computer-based test that will adapt to each student's ability level. I have proposed a broad-based $1 billion investment in our K-12 and higher education system that will include funding for thousands of new teachers, support services for at-risk students, teacher retirement, innovative new programs, and much, much more. I believe that if we truly want to build a new world-class economy, then we truly need a world-class education system.
Several prominent local politicians had positive opinions of the proposed budget.
Well, I am thrilled to hear all of his proposal. $1 billion in education funding for pre-K as well as K through 12 would be amazing.
I think what it does is fulfill the commitment he made to say, we're going to make education, K-12,
the highest priority, the biggest issue, the biggest item in my proposed budget, and it is.
Now here are some clips from the rest of the event.
Tiger.
Thank you.
Is everything good, Peg? TV? That's good. Launch my TV career.
This is Joshua Mutterborough here from Twain TV. How do you plan to work with Republicans, the opposite party, to pass the legislature?
Yeah, and I say this, as I mentioned up here, education should not be a partisan issue. I think everybody agrees. I think most Republicans in the General Assembly would say this governor is very good at creating economic activity. He's very good at creating jobs. This is part of that. This is the tools I need. We're successful bringing in jobs, but the secret sauce of economic development is making sure you can tell an employer or a CEO that you're going to have a workforce 10, 15, 20 years from today. That's the key. Before anyone moves a plant or brings a new business here, are they going to have a workforce? That starts in pre-K, and that is determined in, I view, K through 12.
Those were the highlights from Governor Terry McAuliffe's visit to Twain.
And you're watching Twain TV.
Have you ever been dying to see the new Peanuts movie? Here's Kayla with her thoughts.
It's me, Kayla, your movie critic. Good grief, did you see the Peanuts movie? It was fantastic. You all know the Peanuts gang, and for those of you blockheads who don't, they're those crazy kids down the block in the 50s. There's Schroeder, who's always on that piano. Marcy and her boss, Peppermint Patty, always pushing Chuck around. I think she likes him. Lucy bosses her brother Linus around, and he still won't let go of that blanket. Sally looks up to Big Brother, and wishy-washy old Charlie Brown still protects her as always. In this movie, Charlie Brown aces his standardized test. Suddenly, Violet stops bullying him. Lucy was, less mean to him, and everyone believed in him. He was a hero. He was a genius, except it wasn't his test. It was Peppermint Patty's. He had written his name on the wrong test. Word spread quickly, and suddenly no one liked him anymore. What would he do? This is the story of the same wishy-washy boy who finds a way to prove his worth and show the world who he really is inside. I like this movie because it showed that even the lowest people on any totem pole can rise to the top through confidence and a few friends. I would encourage everyone to watch this movie, and that means you too. Maybe it'll give you some hope when you're feeling down, give you strength when the chips are down, and maybe help you finally win that baseball game. I personally thought that this was a great movie for anyone, and you should really check it out. I'm Kayla, and remember, I'm always watching movies.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Tiger Stripes. I'm Defying Gravity.
And I'm Rapunzel. For more Twain TV, check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/TwainEmsNews.
Also, check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook at Twain TV. Have a great day, Twan!